Please rewind this cassette.
All right, Destroyer has woken up from his slumber to join us again. For the great philosophy, and speaking of Jerry Seinfeld, obviously known as one of the great actors and filmmakers of our time, the prestigious film B Movie, a hood classic, and and well, this started a lot of traction this week. So he basically came out and said that the movie business is over and that movies are dead, which is what a lot of people have been saying. YouTubers that are grifters have been saying this for 6 years, and then everyone just normies decided like 6 months ago they were going to start to be like, hey, maybe movies are not doing too well right now. Who knew?
Well, the Oppenheimer Barbie shine wore off very quickly.
Well, that's what everyone used to respond to this when he said this point, because I mostly agree with him. I think he's right.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody was like, what about Barbenheimer? And I'm like, well, yeah, that's an exception. 2 movies did really well, but a lot of movies bombed last year. They're acting like half the movies didn't bomb last year from all the studios.
Yeah, and even Dune, which is a PG-13 movie. I mean, did it even break 700? I don't even think it did it?
Not the
they were
first
bragging.
one.
No, the new one.
Yeah, the new one's
Dune
breaking
2?
700. Yeah,
Did it? Okay.
it's right there, but it will.
They were bragging that Godzilla and Dune combined made $1 billion.
Yeah.
And Warner's the first studio this year.
Well, I can't believe anyone's coming with that point of view, like the cope of being like, no, movies are doing great. And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, people aren't working right now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm on a lot of threads about, and I have friends who work in the industry, and like, people are not because there's this whole thing about the writers won the strike. That's a bunch of bullshit. That's not true. They failed miserably. Because I remember the guy, the Adam Ruins Everything guy, was talking that way on podcast stuff like, oh, we won, we got everything we wanted, and the media kept pushing the writers won, and now I'm hearing no writers working pretty much. No crew members are working in LA right now for the most part. Nothing's getting produced. They've cut, I mean, people are like either going to have to get different jobs or move out of the city and go work at some other place. That's where the industry's at right now. I don't know if everyone knows this, because I don't see a lot of people talking about it. People are more just bitching about like political correctness and wokeness and Star Wars and Disney, and they're kind of ignoring that the entire industry is like hemorrhaging right now.
It's bad. I've seen videos of different people in the industry like making TikToks and stuff about how they can't find work. And I'm surprised that like a lot of these grifter channels don't pick up on that.
Yeah, it's kind of the big story, like not what's coming out, but the business itself, because there was a streaming boom where they overpaid for a lot of stuff, and there was more TV shows being produced than ever in the history of production. And now that's been cut to like maybe 1/3.
Mm-hmm.
And so all those people were working, and now there's no jobs.
What's so strange is like, does Matthew Bellany even talk about this? Even he strangely doesn't even bring this up.
He kind of downplays it. He'll bring it up like he'll mock the writer's strike because they didn't just not win, they helped kill the movie industry even more last year. That was already on fumes. And Fran Drescher with the SAG thing. No one's acknowledged this. They completely failed. I don't know why anyone tries to deny. Like, the strike not working for after COVID for another year pretty much was like a nail in the coffin to the industry. Because the studios just waited them out, gave them a consolation. Like, okay, here, we won't use AI. And now they're using AI in movies.
Yeah.
And it's being reported on, and it's like, so what was the victory? And Jerry Seinfeld has come to this, although he didn't really come from that angle, but I agree with what he's saying too. So Jerry Seinfeld has said the movie business is over, suggesting films do not occupy the same social and cultural significance they once did. The 69-year-old, Jesus, he's that old?
Doesn't look it.
Fucking Jesus. Who achieved... Yeah, he is. He's a good-looking 69-year-old. Thank you.
He's in decent shape, yeah.
Yeah. Remember those pictures he took, those model photos where he was like wearing jeans? That was weird. The 69-year-old American actor achieved record-breaking success with the sitcom Seinfeld, suggested that depression, malaise, confusion, and disorientation has replaced the movies. Speaking about his experience making Unfrosted, a comedy about a competition between two rival breakfast companies. That's just a crazy thing to read. He told
Yeah, I was about to
GQ.
say, is that the name of the movie? I didn't know that was
Yeah.
the name.
Yeah.
Unfrosted.
Yeah. It's a space race between making a Pop-Tart. That filmmakers appeared to have no idea that the industry was dead. See, this is what I like about Jerry's being real. Because that's true. People are like in denial about what's happening right now. And I see a lot of like film Twitter or film discussion. People seem like I see screenwriting advice stuff. And I'm like, why are you giving anyone screenwriting advice when there's no market to become a screenwriter right now? Professional screenwriters aren't getting work right now. Your advice is not useful. There's nothing due. It's like a lot of people that they're like, what about A24 and all that? I'm like, guys, there's no money. Jerry, they're so dead serious. They don't have any idea that the movie business is over. They have no idea, he said. But film doesn't occupy the pinnacle in the social cultural hierarchy it did for most of our lives. The New Yorker went on to share his experience of the industry at its peak. When a movie came out, if it was good, we all went to see it. We all discussed it. We quoted lines and scenes we liked. Now we're walking through a fire hose of water, just trying to see. When asked what he thought of replaced film, Seinfeld went on to describe a series of dissatisfied and distracted emotions. So he says the depression thing and stuff like that. Everyone I know in show business every day is going, what's going on? How do you do this? What are we supposed to do now? It's like Tucker Carlson. What is going on? What movies are being made right now? Are there aliens or spirit beings in the water? Find out next.
I was going to ironically say podcasts will probably replace that when it comes to conversation.
That's the point. That's what we'll get to. Later in the interview, the actor went on to reveal his favorite TV show ending. I don't care about any of this. Okay, so that's basically what he said. But, well, yeah, I mean, this is the weird thing that a lot of people have been ignoring for like the last, I don't know, I would say 15 years, especially, let's say 10 years, that YouTube, podcasting, social media, TikTok has slowly but very quickly at the same time taking over the place of film in society. And it's obvious.
That's why you see a lot more hipsters involved with film. I was thinking about this the other day. It's because it's become more of a past, like a niche thing, and of course that always attracts hipsters. So
that's a good point. Yeah, the communities that exist are either the A24 Letterboxd crowd, which is not a major market. It's the hipster crowd, and then it's just like superhero fanboy people fighting or fight like political wars. There's really not like the middle ground movie audience anymore. And people aren't talking about, because if people bring up Barbenheimer, they exclude the fact that used to be a lot of movies that came out through the year. It wasn't just 2 movies. People would talk about several movies throughout a year that became famous and iconic. And yeah, you would quote the movie, I mean, that's the thing I think he said that was the most astute, is that it's just not in the pop culture the same way it was. People don't care as much as they used to.
Well, instead of quoting, it's now memeing too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, even now you can tell they try to market movies kind of more social media heavy or try to create memes or TikToks about it. And I don't know what to blame. It's too long of a conversation. I mean, you can blame the studios and the filmmakers and everybody. I think that's obviously part of it, but I also think the world's just been changing and movies are a victim of modernization. I don't think they benefited from it at all.
That's a good point. That makes me feel a little bit better. It's not completely a movie's fault. It's still there.
Well, because I think Roger Avery said it once. He was doing an interview and he talked about when he worked at the video store with Quentin Tarantino. And he said, back then, if you were like a nerdy guy like they were, he's like, I played D&D. I liked, comics. And he said, you watch movies. And he said, now there's stuff like YouTube that didn't exist. And and that makes a lot of sense. Like, if you were a teenager back in the day and those things didn't exist, movies were like one of your options for things to just talk about or to escape to. and that you kind of don't need them anymore. You have so many things now you can pick. That why would they rank number one?
Yeah, especially things that are generally 2 hours and now going on 3 for a lot of movie releases. Yeah, why would you dedicate a lot of your time to that when there's a 15-minute YouTube video that'll get the same point across, it seems.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. I think they're just too long. And I don't think there's a way to fix it because your only option is to make like 90-minute movies, but I don't even think that would fix it. I
That's
don't
why
think
TV shows
people.
are still that's why TV shows still do very well.
Yeah, I just think it's attention spans and I don't know. The interesting him saying like depression's replaced it and stuff. That's pretty interesting because it seems like people would go to movies back in the day for like emotions of certain things or to contextualize certain things, and now everyone's just talking so much in sort of a narcissistic, pontificating way now. Because we're doing it right now. We're all talking and shit. Like I don't know. It's sort of replaced what movies were as like your parasocial relationship with them.
Well,
He
I'd
never
say
mentioned video games either.
Yeah, well, he probably doesn't know anything about them or play them, but that's very true. Yes, video games have definitely grown in popularity while movies have declined.
I was I was gonna say just I would still say give movies a little bit more time because we gotta like let's say if we get back into a better economy, I'd like to have the same discussion again because back in 2019, we still had everything we have now. It's just COVID happened and everybody was stuck at home. But back in 2019, the economy was doing pretty well. Like, do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I agree, but I don't know how if because there has to be a recovery period if that happens, right?
Yeah.
So how much damage gets done before it gets better? And how bad is the damage that can be fixed post that happening? Because I definitely agree COVID, that's like the sleeping giant of this, that because everyone has like memory hold now where they pretend COVID didn't happen.
Yeah.
But that really killed movie theaters. I mean, it's kind of undeniable. Like movies were making billions of dollars in 2019, and then, it's been cherry picking the 3 or 4 movies that do well. And
Well, this kind of reminds me that this two things come to mind when it comes to theaters themselves. So of course, Matt Bellany had on the the CEO of IMAX, the IMAX company, right? And they were saying how you need to make movies more of an event. But another thing that I was also thinking about was Barnes and Noble. I've been hearing about how a lot of their stores throughout the just the 2010s were closing down. They got in a guy from Europe to come in, and he's the CEO now. And his strategy was making bookstores feel more a community in a sense. He gave a lot more creative power to the managers who run the individual stores. So I guess what I'm trying to go with that is that make an event sort of thing like IMAX, but you can also try to make it more of a communal thing. I think
yeah,
that's maybe an approach they should go. Maybe less what is it? Less corporatization of things. I don't know. Maybe it's an
well,
idea.
that's a problem when you go to the movie theater. There's the 30 minutes of commercials before the movie starts.
Mhm.
Commercials, not trailers.
Yeah.
Then you have the trailers, and then I mean, you could talk about the concessions being expensive, but people have been bitching about that forever. That's not new. People complained about that 20 years ago, and ticket prices. But I agree. I don't know why there's not more IMAX theaters. Like I think the biggest thing that confuses me as a movie fan is when people talk about the theatrical experience versus watching a movie at home, and I'm kind of at a point where I don't know what some people are talking about. Like it makes me think I don't want to say they're like delusional, but when they're like nothing tops when you're in the theater and it's intimate like that, and I'm like, I really don't agree with that. Like I used to say that and I used to kind of feel it, but it's like I don't, because the screen's not, it's not big enough at most theaters, even like if it's on IMAX, to really be like, it doesn't put you in awe of the movie like at your normal theater screen.
That's true.
the sound. They act like it's like much better than your 50-inch flat screen or your laptop and your headphones. And I'm like, I kind of don't agree. And I also don't agree that it's necessarily more intimate because you're in that setting. Like, I've definitely had intimate experiences all the time watching stuff in my house, including television shows. What about reading? You don't go read in public to have an intimate experience. You can read in your home. Why are movies different that they have to be watched in a room with other people to be experienced the right way?
They have a 4D experience for some movies. That might be the future. That might be helpful for theaters.
Spy Kids 4D.
Well, like I saw Godzilla, right? And then there's a scene where they're on a boat and the seat would move like you're on a boat. It would make you kind of like seasick. It was cool.
No, I remember, I don't remember what it was, but I went to go see a Roman Polanski movie, and he came out and rubbed my leg during it. And it's like, well, I'm really immersed right now. Well, it's just arguments that don't work.
That's
anymore.
a good point.
It doesn't fix the problem when people try, because that's done. Like saying like, no, man, theaters are great in our places. Like, that's not going to fix the issue, because clearly that isn't how like young people feel. They don't feel that way about movie theaters. So you have to think about solutions like IMAX or other kind of things, because it's not
theme parks. There you go, Marty. Hey, maybe more of a theme park ride. You got moving seats now. You know what I mean?
Well, Destroy, you go to movies more than anyone I know.
Yeah.
It's do you just go because it's nothing else to do, or because what's the feeling? What's the motivation to go see so many movies?
Well, usually like there's like this moment of zen, because I get to see a movie and I'm like, oh, okay, I get to see how many people are going to go see the movie. If not, I get a theater to myself, and that's pretty fucking cool. And then I don't know, it's just an enjoyable experience for me.
Well, it's things to talk about. It's conversation too. I know you love talking about.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I just think if you're not like a hardcore movie person now, I don't know if normal people that like, because they always existed, not like everybody was a big movie fan. I don't know if because I notice that like when I talk to older people, they still like watch movies at night at home. Usually when I talk to people like older generations, like Gen X and Boomer types, they're always like, oh yeah, I went home last night, I watched a movie, and they still want to talk about them, or they ask you questions about new movies. Where younger people, like in their 20s that I've talked to, that's not kind of the conversations.
They don't have conversations. They see it and they say that was cool.
Yeah. They're like, oh, it was fire, dude. Bet. All right.
Yeah. Did you see Oppenheimer? It was so good, dude.
Dude, Oppenheimer was so mid.
Destroy. Going back to the conversation thing, why you see movies, you kind of treat it like you just traveled to like Mecca or something, and you've just acquired knowledge, and you come back to teach us plebeians like what's out there. I love that.
He's our Messiah.
Yes,
he's a prophet.
I just found all this information. You must gather around.
You guys don't need to see the Omen origin. It's shit. Yeah, Muad'Dib. Yeah, I come in and I'm like, hey, movies are dead. And you're like, silence.
He's like, Paul. It was great.
Well, like there are examples, right? Like Dune Part 2 is doing good, like, and people are talking about it, like, you know, that's happening. So it's not like Super Mario Brothers last year, like that also did really well, and people were talking about it. Like, there's still movies that come out and do well, but I don't know how they fix the problem, is what I've been struggling with. I don't know what the solution is to the movie industry and where it's at right now, where it's like a business that's going to be like 50% or less of what it was profit-wise and scope-wise for most of my life. And you know, I don't know if the people who work in the industry know what to do. You know what I mean? Like that, because that's what I think he's talking about. I think he's like probably talking to his friends and being like, do you not understand that like it's not the 90s anymore? Like, we done with the 90s.
Yeah, and you know, speaking of that, you know how we were talking about earlier how screens and there's a lot smaller screens and you really need IMAX to kind of attract people. What's sad is a lot of the movies I like to go see, they don't put in the bigger theater screens. Like I usually have to go to the
Right.
very back of the theater,
Yeah.
and then they're like smaller screens. It's sad.
Lots of people say that. I used to have to drive to go see like art house or foreign films when I was a teenager because they didn't
Mhm.
usually play in the your local theater. And yeah, it was
Yeah,
always some like little ass fucking theater, with like a little screen like what?
which is not where you want to see a movie like that. You want
Yeah. Well, what I remember what it was a big thing was if you went, it was because that was the only way you could see the movie for your convenience as well. Like it wasn't just a cultural thing. Like if you were interested in a movie, if the marketing got you, you were like, well, I got to go see it or I'm not going to get it on home video for months. And then you had to pay to rent it or buy it. So it was expensive too. It was like a money thing.
Mm.
Um, and now you don't really feel that way. There's not this pressure to see a movie when it comes out. You feel like you can watch it pretty quickly soon after it releases.
pirating,
Yeah,
pirating.
well, I hate to say that. There's that feeling, though.
Well,
I mean, it's probably streaming affected things too.
yeah, not even pirating. Like the Bob Marley movie came out February 14th. I saw that, and then I looked today, and I'm like, oh, it's on Paramount Plus. And then I looked at it, and I'm like, this is the first advertisement I got, and it came out like 6 days ago, actually. So it was like only a month out of theater.
Oh wow, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Instantly
Yeah.
on home video.
Well, that's the thing. I think people think about it that way. Also, I would argue too, when people say you got to go see movies in the theater, I don't think a lot of the modern films, like at least technically, like visually, it's not like, oh boy, I need to go see that on a big screen. I'm going to miss out if I don't go see Godzilla, Kong, New Empire, or whatever. If I don't see it in I don't agree with that. I think most of the movies you wouldn't mind watching at home on TV that come out nowadays. Like I said
Mhm.
this, I would have liked to have seen Oppenheimer at home instead of in the theater. I didn't want to sit in that theater for 3 hours after seeing Barbie. That's how I felt, and I watched it at home and I enjoyed it, because people talk about there's at home movies, there's theater movies, there's different kinds of movies
Mhm.
that work in different ways. Not every movie is a theatrical film necessarily. But I also find that when I do like going to the movie theater in recent years, it has been to see an older film as opposed to
Yeah.
a newer film, which I think is very curious. And it is a different experience when it's a film you've seen a bunch of times and then you see it in a theater, as opposed to seeing a new movie for the first time in the theater. It doesn't feel the same way. So that's interesting. So I don't know if it's a film digital thing. I'm sure I don't want to do the like digital sucks thing.
Well,
But
not everybody's David Fincher. Not everybody can make that look good.
well, even him, he gave up on movie theaters and movies. He makes all the shit on Netflix.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I don't like about these directors like Jerry making Netflix. Is what you guys all left. You guys left the industry and went and sold out to the streamers. All the actors did. All the film, like you guys all went and agreed, and all went to go work and make these like plastic projects on Netflix and Disney Plus and Apple. You guys, like Scorsese's even doing it. Like he went to the streaming services. He went to the tech companies. He's working for tech bros. And then he's talking about the integrity of cinema and theme park rights, but he's working for Silicon Valley tech bros producing his vanity projects for $200 million. So it's like, what the fuck are we talking about?
Yeah. I mean, look at Leo. Leo got 50 million for that piece of shit. Man.
That's the thing.
Crazy.
Leo hasn't had like a theater movie in years now. Even our movie stars don't give a shit.
Yeah.
This is a lot of my things. I think they all got too greedy. I think actors in particular started to get overpaid. Everybody started making Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, Will Smith kind of money. Obviously budgets got too high, but whatever, Hollywood accounting. And everyone could say remakes and stuff like that, but that was always a thing. There was always remakes or ripoffs. But I do think they don't like when It came out in 2017, how they marketed it, that had hype and everything. It was something that had been made like in a big budget way like that before. I just think a lot of the studios aren't as savvy with the projects they're picking, how they're marketing them. I think the marketing's really dropped off. as opposed to how it used to be. And it's just a taste thing. I don't think the people are like, do people really want to see a Ryan Reynolds rock kind of movie made for Netflix, or is that just boomers who watch Netflix at home? It's basically like you overpaid for people to star in straight to TV, straight to video quality movies, who were movie stars that typically wouldn't be in stuff like that.
Yes.
I don't necessarily disagree.
So it kind of devalued it a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, if you're going to star in stuff like this, and this is the thing now, then what's it? Because I talked to my friend about this recently. Like, part of what was the key to movies was this kind of grassroots thing with the director, where you would get somebody that you would get like a Sam Raimi, right? Where he's not like an LA guy, but he made a movie with his friends and it plays at festivals and it plays at theaters. And then he gets a bigger budget and gets to make Evil Dead 2. And then years go by and he makes Spider-Man. Peter Jackson's a guy in New Zealand. He makes these little low budget movies. People like them. He's interesting. And then he gets his way into Hollywood. That doesn't really happen much anymore. Like recent examples, like Mike Flanagan was kind of that way, the horror guy. But a lot of it feels like LA Nepo babies now are work in the industry. It doesn't seem like it's a lot of. Yeah, a lot of them. They're LA kids that got through the industry, and I can't think of many like grassroots people now, because those people got popular on their own, and then Hollywood gave them a deal because they built something. And they had an interesting, unique point of view, and that was part of what made it fun. You were like, oh, that guy's an interesting director. That woman's an interesting director. And these directors now just come out of nowhere. They don't have like that film they made that were like, oh, wow, that just seems to happen so much less now than it used to.
Yeah, a good example of that is the Society of Magical Negroes director from The Daily Show. Nobody's heard of that guy.
Well, that's, yeah, exactly. And like that's didn't do well. They just give these people.
Yeah, it didn't do well.
And they're almost all LA located. It's very rare that some of these people like are working somewhere else and then move to LA. A lot of them, like even Ryan Coogler, it seemed like he was that way. Then I found out like he was at Iron Man screening in LA when it came out with Jon Favreau and talked to. So like these people have been hanging around in LA for a long time. And I just don't think they go find the talent. Like, I don't think talented people. It's like they really should look at a YouTuber, right, that makes something that's great, that blows up, and be like, hey, maybe we should talk to them about making a movie, or something like that. Even a TikToker. I don't feel bad saying that, being like, hey, maybe they could make a movie. They have this following they built with this thing they did. But they never do that, which would at least modernize it, or somebody with an audience or something. But they don't do that. They just. I kind of don't know how anyone gets in the industry anymore. It's not like if you make something really good, people will like it. That's just not true.
That seems to be the case. More risks need to be taken at a time when risks cannot be taken, because it's on the edge, you know?
Yeah, it is funny. They're too scared to take a risk for failure, but they're failing because they're not taking risks.